Change these 3 habits now, and you will never ever miss a clue again, turning yourself into a source hound. Imagine your future looking at your ancestry page and always knowing what's right and what's wrong and how to make actionable choices. Well, I got you covered today. In fact, take a look at this. Okay, I'm a bit incensed, I have to sort of admit. And I'm looking at this person's tree here. Have you ever come across a tree like this? So on the left is my tree of my 3rd great grandfather, all the ducks in a row. Parents, siblings, 2 marriages after his first wife passed away, and the descendants of those lines from which I descend, okay, through this, my 2nd great grandmother. Now, let's look to the right here, and this tree is somewhat of a disaster, so I've blurred out the names not to sort of call anybody out on this, but it incenses me because this thing is a bleeding mess. Look at all the children there. Look at all the spouses out of order, right? Look at the dates. I mean, how can you have the first wife listed here with all of these children, right? Not even making sense in sort of the years that are born, right? Newborn Brown, Mary J. I mean, did they have twins, right? Look at the years in which they were born. Look at the marriage dates. And then look at the second wife, right? 1845 to 1819. Now, they weren't even married until, let's see, they weren't even married until 1877. How do you have all these children born in 1866 preceding this marriage? And I tell you what, I'm going to email this person at the end of the video because I am just so upset, and I'm going to teach you a lesson in genealogy through this. I am going to send this person some fire. All right, but before we get into that, we have 3 tips for you, and these are techniques that you're not going to want to miss. And if you guys are new here, welcome to the Family History Foundation. My name is Franklin, and welcome back. If you guys are returning visitors, this is the Family History Foundation, and check us over at familyhistoryfoundation.com. Now, we have 3 things for you. We're going to put this aside just for a second, and I have 3 things that are just going to absolutely be perfect for you to level up your genealogy research. So watch to the end because we're going to take these 3 techniques in reverse order, and the last one is definitely the most powerful one that's going to tie all of them in together. Okay, so really what you want to do, you can follow along with me, and I'm going to pull up some examples as we go. Okay, you can head on over to Family History Foundation. It'll take you over here. You have our wonderful, lovely, beautiful, dutifully written blog here, and you get all these sort of articles you can scroll through and check out. But what we want to do is look at this genealogy research online. We're going to pull out some gems right here. We got some gems covered for you. And while we're not going to cover this whole thing, we are going to take some really leading principles out of here. Now, the first one is profiling your ancestors, okay? So what does that mean? Profiling your ancestors. Okay, here's a story, right? Think about this. When I was researching my genealogy, right, I found out that I had some very troubling ancestors. They didn't make sense to me, and they kind of left me with a sense of fear and almost trepidation. And that was because I found out I had both Confederate and Union ancestors. But I had something that was very odd, an aberration at the time. I had Southern Unionists in my family tree. This didn't make sense to me. Within the same family, I had sons and daughters, siblings who fought for the Confederacy, and then my 3rd great grandfather who somehow magically decided to be a Unionist. And that, so I couldn't make sense of that. So follow me through profiling your ancestors, because this is going to be very compelling, because sometimes the data you get doesn't make sense, but you have to get the larger context around your ancestors, their lives, in order for that to make sense. So, of course, we have birth, marriage, and dates. We have all of the regular things that we always talk about in genealogy. People moved a lot is another key sort of witness to history, right? Because you can have ancestors move, you can have county lines move around ancestors. There are so many things. You got to get to know the historical context. And I like to say we should study genealogy, research online or genealogy research through the eyes of history. You always have to place your ancestors in the period in which they existed. So crucial. So crucial. So let me pull this up right here. Okay, I think this is the one here. So I found out that my third great grandfather was a Southern Unionist. Okay, and this was mind-boggling to me. And so I went and found his Civil War claims, right? And there he is here. And I found 32 pages of claims, state of Alabama. So he was in Alabama, in Walker County, later in Winston County, and he fought for the Union. So this was very strange because he made a commission's claim. It was the Southern Claims Commission, which I thought was made by Southern people, but this was actually Southerners making claims to the Union, to the federal government, because they were loyal to the Union. His sons, David's sons, fought for the Confederacy. His siblings fought for the Confederacy, but his brother also was a Unionist. And he was actually in the Alabama legislature during the Civil War as a Unionist. Believe that. How can you have these stories in your family history? So sometimes they don't make sense, but knowing the context of history is the thing. So this is all of, part of what he had. So what I did, right, to contextualize this fuller was to actually go and make my own document. I went through all of these and I transcribed them myself. So all of the 37 pages of testimony from the friends and neighbors. I learned so much about my ancestor. And you talk about contextualizing your ancestor in history. Well, this was his own words, right? The words of his neighbors and friends and the words of people that were prominent in the counties surrounding, from Tuscaloosa up to Walker County, Fayette County, all of the counties surrounding. It talks about the rebel armies coming to his house, threatening his family, my family. And so being in the context of history is very, very crucial. Okay, number 2, okay. How are you at maps? Have you ever thought about plotting your ancestors' movements on a map, thinking about people that moved a lot? Well, I tell you what, I plotted my ancestor in Connecticut, my great-grandparents, because I found out a lot of information by doing this. So here's another thing, documentation standards. So if we go back up to the top in this article here, right, let's look at, there's an article section called documentation standards, and you have to be able to document what exists. Now, sometimes the trick is, right, as you know, if you're on Ancestry and you're sort of looking at your ancestors' profiles, you can make a complete mockery of profiling your ancestors and documentation standards, right? Because look at this. This is not documentation standards because there is a lot of stuff in here, but does it actually coordinate? Does it actually connect? No, it doesn't. Therefore, we have to be very, very careful about how we are rigorous yet flexible, right? The difference between a proof and a lead. I want you to read back, go through this article and read it because there's so much stuff. Primary sources, corroborating multiple sources. Now, on this point of corroborating, right, we can have all these sources, but are they corroborated like my family tree, right? Everything has its place. And I'll show you an example of this too, because I have, I'll show you this actually real quickly. So my great-grandfather, okay, lived in Connecticut. He lived in Connecticut, but I had the fortune, I would say, of trying to track down where he was. And you look at all these screenshots here. These are basically street guides and city directories. I went through every city directory from basically 1896, 8 to 1920. And I looked at every single page to try to compound where they were. And you see even some of these notes, it says same as the 1920 census address. So I went and looked. He was at Chapel Street, Haven Street, all of these different places. But what I ended up doing, okay, to corroborate data was do this. I downloaded a map, right? I took a screenshot of Google Maps and I said, okay, this is the neighborhood he was in. And I created this, Okay, so you talk about corroborating, keeping your standards high. I mapped out every location. There are quite a few, aren't they, right? And also where collateral lines were within Fairhaven, New Haven, Connecticut during this period of time. So this is a huge, huge thing to do. You may want to do this, but documentation standards. Again, these are 3 habits you want to change now, because all of your documentation and what you're doing, the goals of honoring your ancestors, all are riding on the standards that you are holding yourself to. So I'm holding you to a higher standard so that you can hold your research to a higher standard. Okay, so let's move on to number 3, which is actually number 1 since we're going in reverse order. This is the most crucial. Okay, this is the most crucial, and I call it being a source hound. It's my source hound methodology. But let me ask you a question really, really quickly, okay? Have you ever wanted to found your own town? Have you ever thought of like creating your own estate so large, living in your own space? Several pieces on my third great grandfather and the Monasco family. I actually visited his cemetery in Walker County, Alabama. I took 100 photos. I basically photo documented while I was there the entire cemetery. So you can read about that journey, about his father and fighting in the War of 1812, right? And how he was tied to Andrew Jackson, and the story about my Union Confederate ancestor. Really cool. I did like a historical biography of his life. But anyway, right here, this is a true place, Monasco, Alabama, one of America's oldest ghost towns. So being my source hound methodology, right, this is what I came across, right, researching that he founded his own town, 4th great grandfather. And I mapped it out, right, there, and documented my journey of visiting this place, because there were other family members on other sites, especially on Ancestry and message boards, really wanting to know where this was. So I went there and I documented every little piece of this, and I researched ghosttowns.com, which actually has the site there. How cool is that, right? It has it just where it is, west of Jasper, and I used this information to geolocate where this was and took some pictures, right? And I did these screenshots on Google Earth so I could tell people exactly where I pinpointed this to be, because people were looking for it. And so again, you know, the whole reason I did it was just because of historical curiosity. Like, I really wanted to know. This is something that I came across during my research. So something I wanted to share with you, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful outcomes here. So now what I want to do is get back to this. Okay, here we go. Now, when you find something, like let's think about what we want to say. I'm going to write this person an email, right? Let's craft an email for this person because of this horrible research. Okay. Hi, researcher. This family tree, I'm so mad I can't even type. Family tree is horrendous. Oh my gosh. I cannot believe. Okay, wait, we need to zoom in. Okay. Family. Look at that. I cannot believe you have such uncoordinated facts in your tree. This is a disgrace to all family researchers. And okay, ... I'm just joking. Okay, I'm having one on you right now. Okay, so really, honestly, don't ever write something like this. Okay, I'm doing this as an example of what not to do. Okay, do never, 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 ever write an email like this. Okay, so I was really having one on you. Don't ever write this. Okay, actually, what you want to do is contact this person and use their name. Be cordial. Be kind, be gracious, be generous, be inquisitive, make connections, right? Reaching out to another family researcher is about the avenues that we want to create, the inroads that we want to create. If you look at this family tree here, don't blast somebody ever, okay? You may want to start by saying, hi, blank, right? My name is Franklin, right? I am a family researcher. Let's just read it out, okay? I am a family researcher, and this is my site on Ancestry, and I noticed that you have a tree, a page up for, let's just say, Letitia Ann Monasco, right? Houghton, or Elijah Houghton, who's my other ancestor. And you can say, hey, I am a descendant of Elijah Houghton and Letitia Ann Monasco. And here, and this is very crucial, here is my family tree. And you can take a snapshot. I could take a snapshot. This is what I would do of this, right? Or draw a simple tree out and say, this is my connection to this family. I was wondering about, so-and-so. Just lead in on somebody, right? This person who's actually I'm a descendant of, right? Who married into my Houghton family. And I could just say, hey, I'm inquiring about this person. And if you have any more information, keep it open-ended, okay? Keep it kind and informative. Now, if you have specific questions, you can unfold and ask those later, okay? But never, ever blasphemy. So I was just really joking around with that. Okay, but thanks for watching. I hope you found these tips very, very useful. This is the Family History Foundation, and I thank you so much for being a part of it. Let's make family history a household word. Family History Fridays. Head on over to familyhistoryfoundation.com. We got tons more videos down below on the Family History Foundation channel. Like and subscribe again. And share this with everyone that you know. All right, love you. See you in the next one. Cheers.